Welcome back to the Stats on Inside Tech podcast. Rika and I have today a guest, Abdul. I met Abdul some time ago and really liked the discussion we had about the market research that time and thought he would be a very good guest for us. Maybe Abdul, you can tell a little bit about you.
Hello. A warm welcome to all you wonderful listeners out there. This is Abdul, and I currently lead a market intelligence at Kempower. And I must say it has been a wonderful journey so far. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today. So before we dive into our discussions, I want to extend my sincere appreciation to Corey and Rika for the invite and for the exceptional work they do. It's a pleasure to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, a little bit more of your background. You have a quite an extensive background when it comes to the market research and analysis, right?
Yeah, I bring a decade of experience in market intelligence and market research, starting from working at some consultancy firms. I started my career working with McKinsey and Company in India, back in India, and then I moved to Big Four audit firms. Worked with Strategy and, which is the part of PwC now, and Deloitte. Then I moved to Estonia. I worked with consulting firms again in Estonia. Excedia Consulting, which is a Finnish firm, but still they also had this subsidiary in Estonia. So I worked with Excedia for a year or so. And then I moved to SaaS industry, worked with Pipedrive for 2 years. And then it has been a year so far with Kempower in the e-mobility.
Yeah, the e-mobility sector is quite rapidly growing.
Yes, that's true. We have all seen the move to greener rides has been generating more interest in things like electric bikes, scooters, and especially in electric vehicles that lead to charge in this mobility transformation that's been going on for a while now. Globally, the EV market saw a big jump to 14 million sales expected by the end of this year, 2023. And that's a solid 35% increase from last year. And this is data from the IEA, by the way, the International Energy Agency. And nowadays, we have around 500 models of EV available. And this is more than double of what was available 4 years ago. And when we talk about Europe is for sure making strong strides, second only to China, which is, of course, the biggest EV market globally. And market share for BEV or pure electric car in Europe is anticipated to reach more than 15% this year. That's about 2 million sales of pure electric car. And we expect more than 10 million sales by the end of 2030, which is not too long ago from now. These are just some info that I give you to give the idea how rapid the market is going. But I guess a lot of people are well aware about that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting market. You also are working in Abdul at the moment. But before we dive into the more specific matters on researching that, in general, it's often like, how do you define what is the market research? How it is done when it comes to the kind of market intelligence and research in the work life?
I see market intelligence as an umbrella under which I particularly divide market intelligence into four pillars. Right. So one is the general market research, what you do, the primary and the secondary, and then the competitive intelligence is there, the product intelligence is there, and some ad hoc research that comes into place. So when I look at this kind of umbrella and I see like market research, to me, is the foundation of informed decision making for any business. So it involves systematic collection and analysis of data to understand market dynamics. But at its core, market research aims to answer crucial questions such as who are your customers, what they want, and how your business can meet their needs effectively. Right. So, and it includes a wide range of methodologies from surveys, focus groups discussions to data analytics and competitive intelligence as well. But the insights gained through these market research are invaluable in shaping marketing strategies, product development, and overall business growth in general. So in essence, it is about knowing your market inside out and make well-informed choices or the decisions for your business.
Can you maybe, Abdul, this is my question for you. Can you maybe explain a little bit how the market research itself is conducted? Like I read quite a lot of data previously. So can you explain how did the company came out with the data, with those numbers?
So one of the key aspects of market research is distinction between the type of approach you adopt for the primary or the secondary research. For example, primary research basically involves the direct collection of data from target audience or market, often through some surveys, some interviews, etc. But on the secondary research, on the other hand, that relies on the existing data, such as industry reports or public records available, or from the information from the government statistic websites, for example. Right. So combination of both primary and secondary research is often the best practice, and this is how I've been doing the market research so far. So in a way, we try to connect the dots from of the insights we get from the primary research. For example, just take a company where it does both type of research. One, the secondary research is only mostly the understanding about the markets, you get the market dynamics, and on the other hand, you talk to your customers, you do the surveys, you do interviews, and get insights from them. So in a way, you're trying to understand how does the market look like. What are the market dynamics as such from the general on the using the secondary approach. But on the other hand, you're also getting insights from your customers, and then you try to connect the dots over there, fill in the gap, and this is where the market research, you know, is gives you a very true color of helping you with uh, the well-informed decisions to be made based upon the data you get of these two research. So ultimately, the market research is a very powerful tool that empowers businesses to make data-driven decisions, and this could also minimize risk and maximize the opportunities for your business.
I agree that market research is a very powerful tool, but based on my experience also, there's always challenge and limitation when doing market research. And we know that the EV market can be complex, shaped by factors like policies, consumer trends, technology, and other things. Yeah. So what do you think are the biggest challenge and limitation in analyzing or forecasting the market of such complex industry?
Oh, the e-mobility sector is a dynamic and very rapidly evolving market, driven by technological innovation and also changes in environmental priorities as such. But the market research in this sector is equally crucial to navigate the complexities and to seize the opportunities what's there in the market right now. So one of the key challenges is the piece of technological change happening in the industry, because EVs are undergoing continuous advancements, including improvements in the battery technology, the range, and also the charging infrastructure for these EVs, right? So effective market research should basically involve staying ahead of these developments to anticipate trends, adapt business strategies accordingly. So as you said, the challenge in this particular industry is the complex web of regulations and incentives. Right. So different regions and countries have varying policies and incentives related to the EV adoption. But market research must be done at very granular level, taking into account these local regulations, incentives, and also the infrastructure development. So understanding these particulars is very vital for any market entry or business expansion strategies in this particular e-mobility sector. But definitely not missing out the macroeconomic factors, the OEM demand, and also the supply chain and sourcing issues that can also pose a significant challenge in the e-mobility market. Right. So with all these, market research can help in identifying potential supply chain vulnerabilities and developing contingency plans to mitigate these kind of risks. But I say, Rika, other than this, when you talk about the consumer perceptions, because this has also been one of the primary driver in terms of EV adoption rates, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Then it would directly affect the EV industry. So one way I look at the EV adoption in the market is the EV readiness index. So I closely follow the EV readiness index of the countries or the regions in particular. Um, of course, this is again the third party organizations or third party research done by some consulting firms. They source this sort of information and create a report on EV index or the EV readiness index by the countries. So they consider three or more factors. For example, the EV charging infrastructure, the total cost of ownership, and also the EV pricing, the EV policies, or the subsidy or the funds by the government in the particular country or the state. So altogether, this gives us a EV readiness index, which also in turn affects the EV adoption, right? So the readiness index of that country, so we can anticipate like the EV adoption could be much better when compared to the other countries or previous years as such, right? And to just understand these consumer perceptions, so and also the adoption rates of EVs that can change rapidly based upon these, right? So understanding these trends through market research is also equally essential. So factors such as range anxiety, well, I'm not. I still don't understand why the range anxiety is one of the the demotivator factor for most of the people. I've seen so many surveys. Um, Lately, it has been the drivers, the sustainability, these kind of positive drivers, which are motivational factors for the people moving to the EVs. But at the same time, range anxiety is something which has been there existing in the reports for so long time, but I think it's going to change soon. I think with these kind of technological developments in this industry, the strong EV charging infrastructure coming into place, I think this is gonna change. And then also one of the primary factor I see is the pricing influence on the consumer choices, right? So keeping fingers on the pulses of consumer preferences will allow businesses to adapt and meet the evolving demands of e-mobility market effectively.
Let's touch on the point about you saying how the market is rapidly changing. I have to say that I do all those things or almost all those things that you are doing also, like following the index, following the surveys, and so on. But most of the reports are based on last year's number or like let's say 6 months ago, while we know that the e-mobility market is zooming ahead super fast. So the data from just a few months ago might be old news
Yeah.
today. Yeah. And there's always new stuff going on in the market, like new policies, new incentive scheme,
Hmm.
and also the company is also going a lot of change. Also, like Tesla, for example, previously kept
Yeah.
to themselves. Now they start selling its superchargers to other companies. That will, of course, change the market dynamic, right?
Of
But
course, of course.
yeah, but then market research takes time. So even new reports might be showing all the data and they don't
Hmm.
take this
Hmm.
new market dynamic into account. So I'm curious, how do you deal with this time, like in market reports and all other available data to make sure that your analysis and forecasts are accurate?
Yeah. So you know that is why I said like keeping a pulse, or tracking the macroeconomic factors is equally important, right? And
Yes.
I just tell you this sentence. So there are a number of sources for you to get the data, right? So there
Yeah.
are many credible sources, and also there are many incredible sources to get the data, right? So you have to find those credible sources and make a list of those sources. You follow those sources, you follow the data, and you keep following those only. You cannot jump from one source to another because the numbers, the data might completely change from one source to the another. This is just the data part. But when you talk about these kind of changes on the in the policies and the incentives, so this is where the macroeconomic factors come into place. For example, I'll just give a simple example of Germany right now. All right, Germany recently announced the fading away of incentive for the businesses on the EV side. That means the businesses who get the EVs will not be eligible for the subsidy now. So only the private or the personal private customers can avail this subsidy from the Germany. So this has created a lot of headwinds in the EV adoption in the Germany. For example, in August, the EV sales or the has jumped to around 171%, and then we expect it's gonna be a flat downfall in September, in October, and in the coming months. Because of this little change in the policy, the whole outlook of the German EV market might be affected. It may not drastically affect or have a huge impact on the EV adoption, but of course, it might create some sort of headwinds. So I particularly the primary, the top line metric for you to
Mm-hmm.
follow is the EV policies and incentives. Keep tracking those policy changes. Keep tracking these the government body who is taking care or who is responsible of creating, modifying these EV policies in the states or in the regions, right? So these kind of news, these kind of the maybe you can do some media discourse analysis. You keep track of these changes, or do some alerts or notifications on these statistic websites, so you get all those notifications and keep monitoring few of the organizations. For example, ACEA is a place you get all these kind of reports, what's happening on the discussions on the UN side. But but but, but also, this is where I see this is the primary driver for the EV adoption. If the EV policies or the incentives are reducing or creating headwinds in the EV adoption in any of the region or the country, then it's gonna become tighter and tighter for the EV penetration. On the other hand, I see without these EV incentives or the funding or the subsidies, it will be again a chicken and egg theory for the EV adoption and the charging infra, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it has to have a stronger policies. Right now, I see, and also you might have also seen the 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 one of the factor affecting the EV adoption is the EV prices, right?
Yes.
And there has been a lately a discussion on this, like how the Chinese EVs are entering into the EU market, because the pricing is very competitive of the Chinese EVs when you compare to the other OEMs or other brands in the Europe, right? So you,
Yeah.
you can see, for example, this in Norway. You can see, for example, this in the other countries. For example,
They
Germany
get
is not the place,
already
but still,
80%
yeah.
of EV cells. Yes.
So this is something very very crucial already for the governments to understand. What are the barriers of EV adoption? Of course, the subsidies are somehow driving the e-mobility, but still there is a huge gap, right? It's right now I see EVs as kind of the premium or kind of a luxury segment right now,
I agree with you. Yeah, on that.
right? So the more the prices for the EVs becomes competitive, it becomes a kind of easy grab for the customers, and this would give a huge boost to the whole EV industry. Not just only the EVs, but also the EV charging infra, because EV charging infra is somehow directly or indirectly dependent on the number of EVs there in the state. For me to just look at how strong the EV charging infra should be, I go back and track and take the targets of what EU has been saying. What are the targets for the charging infra, the charging points for per EV? They say, okay, right now, how many number of BEVs are there in Europe? I'm talking about park values, like all the number of vehicles. So for say we have 10 million. I'm just saying this number. I'm not saying like this is the exact number. Just per
Mm-hmm.
se, there are 10 million, and we say like, okay, how many number of charge points are needed to run these 10 million EVs in Europe without any issues? That means overcoming the pain points of the EV drivers, for example, range anxiety, having an efficient charging infrastructure, reliable and efficient charging infrastructure. I think I want to stress on this word, having an efficient and reliable charging infrastructure. right? There are charging chargers installed, but doesn't work. So this has been also a kind of an issue with the EV drivers have brought up, right? So they are desperately in need of EV charging. They see a charger, they go and plug it. It doesn't work.
Yeah, reliability
And
can be an issue.
yes,
Yes. Mhm.
this is the issue. And then the EV prices and all these kind of barriers it's creating kind of a vacuum. So the more the EVs are evolving in technological front, it has to also be made economical for the people to go and buy the EVs. Right now, they funding there have been in some changes in few of the countries on the EV policies. Norway introducing VAT, Germany getting rid of the EV subsidy for the businesses. So these type of decisions will have a huge, some headwinds in the EV adoption. So monitoring these EV policies or the organizations who build and append these EV policies is crucial when you're talking about market research in the e-mobility. So that's the top line metric, is top line factor for me to look at. And of course, on the other hand, there is the OEM side, right? There we
Mhm.
see what's happening on the OEMs. I take an example of VW, right? What's happening on the with VW in on the EV front, right? So these has to be monitored, tracked hand in hand. It is not just you pull the numbers from the sources, you run some analysis, you do some predictions based upon you do some educated guess on the data and the patterns you come up with, and then you say like, okay, it's going to be some X market, it's going to be a huge market. Okay, that's cool, that's fine, but then it has to be iterative. It is not just the one time you do the analysis, you do the numbers, and then you say, okay, let's just build a strategy upon the data what we have got it, we have analyzed, and then it cannot just sit there for the rest of the years. So it has to be iterative. It has to be continuously monitored. It has to be it has to be the person who is working on this job has to be keen enough to keep himself or herself to to up to date on what's happening outside. But come up with the key KPIs. What are the top line metrics I have to monitor in that particular region or the country? And that is how you structure the market research. What are your top line metrics? What kind of effect it has? Just give some percentages or some ranking. Okay, five of these top lines, and then you say, like, okay, top five covers almost 60, 70% or 80% of impact on the total e-mobility market. And that is how you keep tracking those metrics and monitor these ones.
That's very good insight on
Yeah,
what to track and what to monitor on top of the data that you already have. Thank you for that.
yeah. It's a
Cool.
very almost like overwhelming to think like how many different things and variables there are and the data. And regarding that, I was wondering like, because yeah, there's plenty of data and variables you should take and or could take in account. And what
Mhm.
are kind of common pitfalls you should be careful with if you are sourcing or interpreting market data or forecasts?
I think I speak from my experience, of course. So it's more about the human mistake, because the more you work with the numbers, there's the probability of making mistake on the numbers increases. So I would say because businesses are increasingly relying on these kind of the data, and also big data coming into role, and maintaining data quality is also very very critical, right? Because the inaccurate data can propagate through various analysis and then into the decision making process, leading to costly errors, right? So I would say you uh, include few of the data cleansing and validation procedures when you're at the data collection stage itself, right? So market research starts at the data collection stage. So you have to be very careful. You you build your framework, you build your methodology. Okay, this is it. What I'm trying to do now. What I'm gonna do now. So meanwhile, you have to also come up with some data cleansing and validation procedures. For example, I'll just give a short example for the e-mobility industry again. It could be the charging station duplication, right? So you have to be very careful. You don't duplicate the charging stations what you have included in your in your analysis, or maybe the standardization of charging connector types. I don't know. Maybe it is just the historical data cleanup, or maybe something you mess up with the model names or some manufacturers had its names. So you have to include or come up with few of the validation procedures, the data cleansing, so that you don't have the repetitive data duplication in your analysis, because one number, the duplication of just one number will take your estimates to other place. This has happened. Like, okay, it was just one metric which was additionally included in the analysis, and then the result was completely an outlier value, and then we had to track back all the way, like, and then go through all like full analysis and see step by step to see where it went wrong. So this could have been avoided at the first place in the initial stage itself. Each step you do this data cleansing and validation, each step you move ahead of your analysis or your prediction, you go back and do these procedures, then you can mitigate this risk of having these the data errors at the end.
Yeah. When I'm thinking like if we're talking like companies who are building products and selling them to the customers who don't have like kind of resources of the market research companies, so obviously you cannot always do the research yourself and verify that way that the numbers, where the numbers come from. So you have to take granted research by then others. And of course, it's possible that somebody else has made a mistake. Do you have some way that you try to recognize if there is a mistake in the research you access, for example, done by others?
Yeah. See, the best way for me, how I do it is you for example, you're looking at the e-mobility market per se by 2030. Just want to understand how big the e-mobility market going to be by 2030 or 2040, whatever. Just say 2030 for now, and then you pick up all these numbers from various sources. You don't stick to one source per se. You have your source, but you also pick the numbers from the other sources. Go 4 or 5 different sources, 6 number of sources you want to pick up. If the values what you have picked up, including your source, is in the range and you don't feel any of the source give you an outlier value. So if for example, you say it's going to be some 20 billion market, and all the others, on an average, it's going to be 20 billion market, but there is one source which says it's going to be 40 billion market. So that is definitely not the source you look at. So you roll out in these kind of scary sources or incredible sources out when you look at when you look at the market reports, because for the companies who don't have this in-house capability of having a market intelligence expert within an organization, so they depend upon these studies they get from these third-party sources, right? So it is and most of the time it happens like they pick one provider, they get the report, they look at the numbers, and they start building their strategy on the numbers what they see, right? So I would say before going into the step of utilizing those numbers from the report, validate. I wouldn't say that this is kind of a validation, but at least look at the reports what what other reports are talking about. What are the numbers from the different resources, from the other reports as well? And all the other numbers are talking about on the similar range, the range and the same. There's no big difference or huge difference. So then you can deep dive into the what methodology the report has been built upon, what sort of analysis they have done, what sort of data, and what are the metrics they have used to come up with these estimations, and what are the factors that they say that might affect the estimations in the report. You can deep dive into those. You need not deep dive about all these methodology and factors in all the reports. Maybe you stick to one report. That's fine, because you cannot you'll not be anyhow implementing these methodologies or these metrics in any of the any of the in-house calculations. You just take the report, you read the report, pick the numbers, cross-check with the other sources as well. See the number is in line. Okay, that's cool. It's gonna be in this range. Any outliers? Remove those sources. Those sources are not good for you.
All right, that was very good insight how you look into the different kind of variables and so on and handle it. And yeah, maybe I have one question. Like often, like when I met you first time, I was like, whoa, it's very rare to meet like in the company level the people who have such a structured way. Of course, very rarely people are full time doing market research. They are doing it inside of their job. And for companies when they grow, you use the data in different amounts, different needs, and so on. But bigger you grow and more markets you start covering, more products you have, more the data, of course, you should use in the decision making. How do you think the companies who are just starting to use like systematically the market insights in their decision making, how should they get started with it? Because obviously they cannot jump to the level what you are doing at the moment straight away if they don't have dedicated people for it and so on. How would you start?
As I said, I think the organizations without the capability of in-house market intelligence, so it has to be some efforts made on getting these studies or the reports, of the particular industry. So most, I assuming most of the organizations have their key markets or the targeted markets. I don't assume the company which is on the early stages of the establishment. I don't assume they're gonna definitely look at the global level. They don't want to get all the information. Okay, what's happening in the world? I want to know everything from the North America region to the Southeast Asia. Right? They would have their own targeted markets, the key markets where they really want to enter into those markets. Right. So in order to have that sort of market entry strategies built, they should do the market explorations projects. Of course, they don't have these again a person to do it. So what they do is they look at these market reports by the region or by the country, right? So then they might get some trimmed or maybe directed insights about their key focus markets. This could be the one way, but again, they can be a number of parameters they would they would like to monitor. They would like to look at the market. So for any organization, it has to be like they decide on the KPIs. They decide on the parameters. They on the market exploration projects they would like to look into, and later pick those as KPIs and monitor those KPIs. So this would be a very kind of a quick way to do it. I mean, organizations have been doing it already. So, but I'm if there is something else which I'm not aware of, and I would really like to hear how these companies are doing it.
Yeah, it's pretty much describes. I would say I've been working in the startups and growth companies most of my career, and yeah, pretty much describes the approach done. And yeah, I do hope that the companies know at least what are their key target areas and who are their customers, at least as you mentioned. And I really appreciate that you came to visit our podcast and gave really good and professional perspective on how to look and analyze the markets.
Thank you so much for this session, Abdul.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
A special offer for our listeners. We are giving you full access to statistics for 30 days by registering at statson.com with the code STATSON, spelled in uppercase STATZON. Thanks for listening to our podcast. Visit our website and get our Tax 360 newsletters. If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe, recommend the podcast to your colleagues, friends, and family, and follow us on social media.